Good morning. My name is Sarah Fossiltz. I serve as the Board Administrator for the Texas State Board of Social Worker Examiners. At this point, I'd like to call a roll. Chair Brumley.
Present.
Ms. Andrade.
Present.
Ms. Graham.
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Mosier.
Present.
Ms. Romsbacher.
Present.
Ms. Rogers.
Present.
And Ms. Swartz.
Present.
And Mr. Morris and Ms. Science Davila communicated earlier that they would not be able to attend today. So we have a quorum. Chair Brumley, if you'd like to call the meeting to order.
So we'll call the meeting of the Texas State Board of Social Work Examiners to order at 8:32 on January 7th, 2022. So thank y'all all for being here. We'll get rolling on the agenda. Just to make everybody that's here and everybody at the public aware, we will follow the agenda in order until 9 a.m. this morning. At that point, we will move to agenda item 15 for a pre-planned meeting with the Association of Social Work Boards, ASWB. So just everybody be cognizant of that. And with that, we'll move into agenda item number 2, which is approval of the minutes from the October 8th, 2021 board meeting.
I make the motion to approve the minutes.
Have a motion. And I think, was that you, Jennifer, that made the second?
Audrey.
Audrey, okay. So I have a motion from Ms. Mosier and a second from Ms. Romsbacher. All those in favor of approval of minutes from October 8th, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. So we will move to agenda item number 3. So if you have available your information, go ahead and pull that up. But agenda item 3 is board review and possible action regarding appeals of application for licensure denials, including, I gotta put my glasses on now. Emily Bragan, Deshana Hall, Latoya Ogaden, Christina Robertson, and Tammy Thompson. So we will take those in order. Sarah, do you have information that you want to present on these?
Only what was in the packet.
Okay, so.
And Ms. Bragan is in attendance, and the meeting notice that was sent to Ms. Bragan allows her up to 10 minutes to inform the board of anything that's not already submitted.
Okay, so if everybody wants to open or look at the information you have on Emily Bragan, and we'll allow Ms. Bragan a time period to talk this morning, so we can.
Just briefly, what was at issue was that the supervised experience was beyond the at least some of the supervised experience was beyond the 5-year calendar year mark. So I will, if that's okay now, I'll ask Ms. Bragan to unmute.
So while Sarah's doing that, do y'all have any questions or information that you want to discuss? All right. Hearing none, we'll get Miss Bragan on the phone, on the Zoom.
Ms. Bragan?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. The last name's actually Bragan, but that's okay.
Okay, we'll get it.
That's okay. Yeah, so I completed my supervision. Really nothing additional that I want to say beyond what's already submitted to you all. But I did complete my supervision from August 2014 to September 2016. I sat for the exam initially in 2017 and unfortunately did not pass that. I did go ahead and contact the board in December 2020 to request to take that exam again. I did pass it in May. The denial says though that I would have had to submit my experience and pass the exam before May 2019, which is before they even allowed me to sit for the exam in 2020. So I did pass the exam in 2020 and then submitted my application in November of this year, this past year, 2021. you know, time, life, I guess, just kind of happened, which was why the application was submitted late.
Okay, so your supervision was completed in, and if I remember looking at it, in about, it was a little over a 2-year period, or right at a 2-year period, is that right?
Yes.
August 5th, 2014 through September 1st, 2016.
Okay,
Yeah.
so August to September, so 25 months, 24 months, right in there. And then after that, you waited a period of time, took the test, was unsuccessful, and then what happened in that next period of time that before you asked to take the test again?
I became highly discouraged. It was a hard test to take. I didn't pass it, so I became discouraged. I tried to convince myself that I did not want to become an LCSW and move forward with everything. After a lot of support and encouragement, towards the, I was nearing the end of what I thought was my 5 years. I realized that becoming an LCSW is exactly what I wanted to do. And so I contacted the board to get that approval again to sit for the exam. Got that approval, like I said, in December 2020, and then sat for the exam in May of 2021 and was successful in passing the exam.
Okay.
So during that time frame, it was just, me trying to, I guess, regain the courage to take it again, because it is very difficult.
All right, thank you. Does any of the board members have any questions?
I do. I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. Ms. Bregan, you ended your supervision 9/1/2016. You did pass the exam in May 6, 2021.
Correct.
Which that is within 5 years of when your supervision ended. Correct, Sarah?
Yes. Oh.
Oh, that's okay. But Sarah, so I guess that's part of my confusion is, where is the 5 years from the beginning of the supervision?
So I was
the supervision. I'd like for Sarah to answer.
Okay.
That.
Sure.
Thank you, though.
It appears that staff interpreted the 5 years to be counting from the beginning of the supervision.
But can I just add in there? I'm sorry. When I submitted my application, and I got the denial, I called and spoke with Miss Woodruff, and she said that it was just recently, right prior to Thanksgiving, that I guess she had questioned that when that 5-year mark was when that 5-year mark I guess existed, from the beginning of the supervision or the end of the supervision. And I guess she said that attorneys had got involved and their interpretation at that time was from the beginning. So that's why they're saying I should have submitted it prior to May 14th, 2019. But I mean, that was an interpretation that was just,
Let me interrupt you here, Ms. Bregan. It's not an interpretation. It's actually in the rule. I've got the rule. Can everybody see the rule that's up on the screen?
Yes.
The highlighted portion. That's what the law is on the books.
right, but I think they were.
Hold on,
okay.
Ms. Bregan. Hold on, Ms. Bregan. I'm not.
Sure.
This is a discussion between us and the board right now.
Sure.
This is what the law is. I think probably the way that this had all been, I don't know if interpreted is the right word, but the way it had been looked at in the past was it was 5 years from the date supervision ended, but that is not what the law is. That is not what your rule says. And so that is what is hanging Ms. Bregan up. And that's what's hanging a lot of people up, is you got to complete your supervision within 24 to 48 months, but that time frame must fall within a 5-year window that precedes the date of application, according to your rule.
Say that again, Daryl. The 24 to 48 months
Yeah.
precedes the application?
No, you've got to complete right here. Can you all see the rule that's up on the screen?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
understood you incorrectly, I believe.
There's the 24 to 48 month requirement that you have to complete your supervised experience within. But that period of 24 to 48 months has to fall within the 5 calendar years immediately preceding the application. That's the way your rule is worded. That's the way it works.
Because the LCSW application occurs once that's completed?
Correct.
Yes, okay.
So it's not actually when you test, it's when the application is completed.
Correct.
So, and then you have a year when you do your application until you test, correct?
Yeah, your application would stay valid for a year.
You're potentially getting 6 years there. So when was the application received for that test that she passed in May 6th, 2021? Do we know?
November 11th,
Pardon?
221. So
In February.
Once we had ASWB do the pre-approval for examinations, they pass their exam before they apply. So she passed the exam in May of 2021, and the application to recategorize as an LCSW was received on November 11th, 2021.
I see. Okay.
Okay, any more questions or discussion? All right, hearing none, does anyone have a motion concerning the appeal for licensure concerning Emily, and it's Bragan, Emily Bragan?
Yes.
So I guess my question is, do we have any wiggle room from statutes to make exceptions within this? I mean, she was outside of the 5 years from when it expired. It's still 2016 when she passed the exam. We were within a 5-year period. So
I don't find a mechanism. I don't find a mechanism in the rules that allows you to waive this requirement. Unfortunately, I don't like, I'll tell you right now, staff does not like the effect of this rule, what it's causing, the problems that it's causing.
I agree.
You've got 3 on the agenda this morning that are hung up by the same thing, and you're going to have a lot more coming in the pipeline. I think this is a rule that we need to take a look at pretty quick. But right now, I don't know there's nothing we can do. I mean, we're hung up here by the way this rule is worded, and there's just nothing I can do about it.
Do you have a sense of what remedy can be offered to Ms. Bragan and others?
I don't think there is a remedy, unfortunately. I do think if we change the rule to say, like MFT and LPC board, for example, don't put any kind of shelf life on their supervised experience. So, for example, if we eliminated that 5-year window, you kept your 24 to 48 month, but you eliminated the 5-year window, she could then reapply and still use that same supervised experience to go ahead and qualify. Now, she's going to run into a problem on probably her exam validity, because y'all got a 1 or 2 year, you're about to adopt a 2-year exam validity, where the scores remain valid for 2 years. That's going to be problematic for her, but at least the supervised experience would be grandfathered in. She could reuse that.
But Darryl, when we adopt the 2-year, her passing date was May 21. Is that right?
Correct.
So she's got to, when we adopt the 2-year, she'll have another year.
Okay, so she'd be okay then. Yeah. So I mean, from my perspective, and Tim and I were visiting about this yesterday. I think we either need to take a long, hard look at getting rid of that 5-year window, or y'all need to extend it out significantly so that it's not hanging up people. The only other board that has something similar to this is the psychology board, and they have we call it a gap rule at psychology. but I'll be honest with you, they never use it. I mean, I've never once seen them deny a request to excuse. They have a mechanism that allows them to excuse a gap. And they've never once denied anybody that. So it's kind of the exception always swallows the rule over there. So I don't really see a lot of use in it over there, but, and I think y'all need to, either you need to create that type of a mechanism here, some type of waiver, which I think you'll probably use it all the time, and you'll just be just like psychology. You'll constantly be, yeah, waive it. Or you just get rid of the 5. And I'll tell you one of the reasons I'm not so much worried about getting rid of the 5 is from what I understand, that LCSW exam is so difficult that if you're worried about like staleness of knowledge or staleness of experience, probably that exam is going to catch you. It's probably going to weed those folks out. But those of you that have taken it, I'll leave that to your better judgment on whether that my assessment there is right. But we got a problem here.
Well,
we need to fix.
To fix this problem, Daryl, we can't fix it today, obviously.
No.
But we can add this. So as far as a timeline for Ms. Bragan and the other 3, if we add this to the April agenda, what would be the timeline after that when this would be enforced if we make a change?
I think we've got a meeting for BHEC in May. Let me see here. Whatever the next meeting for BHEC is, it can be proposed. And then whatever y'all's next meeting after that is, you come back, review the comments, assuming there weren't any comments that highlighted a major problem, y'all could recommend adoption. I don't know, 6 to 9 months.
So we put it on for April. BHEC has it in May. I think after that, we're July.
Correct.
So by July, whatever our meeting date is, we could have it on the agenda for approval.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Could we retroactively, like say anybody affected after 2020 or something? Because then that gives her this really crunch window. And I don't know the other cases coming. I don't want to end up where these 3 people are just kind of left in the wind.
Well, the problem is we've got to deny them under the existing law right now.
Definitely. But if we make a
Now-
change that could help them.
What you could do, this is going to hurt our numbers, our performance measures, but what you could do is not take any action on it right now. Let it sit. Let our application sit until you get this rule change implemented, and then the whole problem goes away.
Okay.
The problem is she's just kind of left flapping in the wind there until we get it done. I don't foresee unless NASW or some members of the public jump up and point out some kind of major problem with what I'm suggesting here. Which the only thing I can think of is people are going to argue, well, the supervised experience might be stale. That's the only thing I can see that's going to come up.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Short of that.
Yeah, I agree with that, Daryl. I think that would be the best practice, even though these 3 may impact some performance measures. But I agree with the idea that the test in itself is the true measure of the performance after the supervision. So I think we got everything in the right order. We just need to make a move for that. Ms. Bragan, do you understand what we're talking about?
I think I'm following.
Okay, so a synopsis is, I will ask for a motion in the near future here to stay your application. So we won't take action on it today.
Okay.
That will then we will add to the agenda a rule change for our April meeting, which will then be moved to the big board, the BHEC board in May. And then with approval and open for comments from the public, we'll come back to the social work board in July for approval. So it would, if all goes as planned, it would delay your application until July.
Actually, probably till at least mid-August.
Oh, I'm sorry, till mid-August, because then it has to be processed.
The council has to approve the adoption.
Oh, then we have to go to the BHEC meeting in August to approve it. Then it could get
And it
moved
gets
in the
submitted.
pipeline. So within this year,
Would there be any further action that I would need to take?
no ma'am. You would
Okay.
just have to sit and
Sit
wait
tight.
patiently.
Sit tight.
I can do that.
Stay out of trouble between now and then so that nothing,
No problem.
nothing derails you.
Brenda has some input.
Chair Brumley, the council would meet August the 23rd,
Okay.
and then it would be adopted 20 days from the date Texas Register receives it from us.
So
Okay. So that
mid-September.
would be mid-September. So hopefully by Halloween, you could dress as a clinical social worker.
My birthday. Perfect.
So could we wrap the three that we're hearing today for this same issue into one motion, or is that not? We can, okay.
You can wrap
So-
them all up. Yeah.
If there are others that are in attendance, do we need to afford them an opportunity to speak to the board?
I think probably we ought to ask them if they understand what we're talking, make sure they understand what we're talking about and kind of the direction, and make sure there's nothing that they want to add was funky and would, kind of throw off our plan. But other than that,
What would be the proper process? To have them speak first and then call for a motion, or to call for the motion first?
let's hear from them first is what I'd recommend in case that changes our mind on something.
Is anybody else out there?
I am gonna search.
I thought I saw Ms. Hall's hand up earlier.
Ms. Hall, can you unmute?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you like to make a few comments to the board? Have you been following what we've been discussing?
Understand, I think my situation is a tad bit unique, considering that my applications were not processed on behalf of the board and not necessarily any negligence on my behalf, but I am satisfied with the direction that the board is going to remedy the problem, and I don't have any pushback from that.
Thank you, Ms. Hall.
The other one was Miss Agadan. Miss Agadan, are you able to unmute?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Hello. I have a question. Since for 2020, was there any type of let me tell you my story. Okay. So I started in 2015, and then I started with the first supervision. My supervisor quit and so I had to start all over with the new supervision. So I didn't end that supervision until the summer of 2018. And then I tested in 2018. I missed it by 1 point. And at the time I was taking care of my sister, she passes away. And then in 2019, I tried to test again, missed it by 7 points. And then in 2019, I got COVID in September, downhill from there. I was intubated in 2020. I was in ICU twice, kind of recovered. And then 2021, I had like 3 ICU stays, still recovering from the 2020. And then finally felt good enough, strong enough, and just tested in December 21 and passed. And so, so I just wondered if there was anything for the whole COVID era that obviously wasn't my fault, but ended up very, very sick for that whole entire year.
Now, looking at the rule that Daryl had up there, and I can be sympathetic to your situation, but just to tell you that rules don't get that specific as far as allowing someone accommodations based on medical needs or I guess world situations which COVID has impacted us. So you'll still fall now. And let me be clear on something here, because as you were giving me dates, I was trying to do it in my head. So did you say you finished? So you started an application in 2015? Was that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So based on that rule, that's the start date that we would use. So
Okay.
you would still be accommodated under the plan that we have, holding out that it is all accepted and you're accommodated within that, being as you passed your test in 21, if I remember right.
Yeah, and I was unaware that I could have done the application prior to taking the exam. That's why I waited until after the exam to do the application. I was unaware that I could have done that prior to.
You can no longer,
Yeah.
as of last October 2020.
Oh, okay, okay.
Pass the exam and so that's a change that's been relatively recent.
Okay.
So basically you fall under what we've been talking about. So, but thank you and appreciate
Thank
you,
you.
showing up to give us your information. So,
Okay.
all right, hearing that, I would like to take a motion that the board just leave the applications open for Mrs. Bragan, Mrs. Hall, and Mrs. Ogadon.
So I'll
So
make that
moved.
motion.
Okay, so I have a motion from Megan and a second from Martha. All
Yeah.
those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Motion does carry, and so we will add this change for or add this to discussion for the April 22nd meeting. So
Brenda, there's one thing I hadn't thought about. Do we currently have any proposed changes to 781.401 already in the pipeline?
there's one on the agenda today, Daryl, and under item 12.
Is it a recommended for,
For public comment today, there's also discussion regarding continuing education today. The standardization work group proposed changes to 401, I believe, as well.
It's the adopted version, Daryl.
they're recommending those for adoption?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's not gonna foul us up then. Okay, never mind. I just want to make sure we didn't. Sometimes if you have two different proposed changes to the same rule, it can delay when one can be put into the pipeline, but we're not gonna run into that here, it doesn't look like, so.
Okay.
Never mind.
All right. So at this time, the Texas State Board of Social Work Examiners will move to item number 15.
Let me just wrap up with Ms. Braga, Ms.
Oh,
Hall, and
sorry.
Ms. Agadan. Thank you for attending today. We so appreciate it. I will send you an email to summarize what transpired today and what the next steps are, and I will keep in touch with you regarding the process of the rule change.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sarah. I forget that we have to tell people officially what's going on. We just can't tell you on here. So now we will move to item number 15 on the agenda, as planned, to have a discussion and possible action regarding our October 8th, 2021 letter from stakeholders expressing concerns about purported disparities in the pass rates in various demographic groups on the national exam. And as we move to that, we will be joined by the Association of Social Work Boards. I know Jennifer, Dwight, and looks like Lavina are all here. So if y'all want to unmute, and just a brief background, at the ASWB National Conference in November, I don't remember the exact dates, but it was in November. There was information provided to all the members of ASWB, in which Texas is one, that ASWB is moving forward with a plan to release certain information related to pass rates, as far as demographics, as far as national statistics. So Dwight, Jennifer, Lavina, thank y'all for coming, and I will just turn it over to y'all and let whoever wants to talk first go.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for inviting us to join you in your meeting today. I am Dwight Hymans. I am the CEO at ASWB. Been with ASWB for over 14 years now. Have conversed with a lot of the Texas board members of the past, and we've had several of your board members who have been on our board of directors, which has been a real benefit for us as well. By way of introducing this, excuse me, Brian already mentioned that in November, we publicly released information that the board of directors had decided to move forward with analysis of exam performance data. Now, to put this in context, there's been a lot of, I think, a lot of misinformation that somehow we had that information already and we just weren't releasing it. The reality is that we don't have that information. So we're starting from the beginning point. We have contracted with a psychometric consulting group. For those that are not familiar with psychometric services, those are individuals and organizations that focus on this whole concept of high stakes licensing exams and other types of measurement exams like our licensing exams. So we've contracted with them to begin the process. And that process initially is going to just start out by cleaning up the data. We need to pull it together and clean it up to make sure that the data is in a sufficient format so that when we do analyze the data, we can trust the results that we see from that data. And for those of you who have done any kind of research and have significant data sets, that takes a while to accomplish that. It's a very detailed process. And as I said, we want to make sure that we have good data in order to be able to give good information so that we can stand behind it. So we're in that process right now. We have been meeting regularly with the consulting firm that is doing the analysis, where we have yet to completely sort out what the full analysis will look like, although we have some parameters, and Lavina is going to be talking a little bit about that in just a few minutes. So we're going to be continuing to move forward as quickly as we can on this project. The intent is that we will at least have some information that we will be able to share by the end of the first quarter of 2022, so by the end of March. I don't know that the full analysis will have been completed by then, but it may have been. We're certainly trying to do this as quickly as we can, but at the same time, we want to do it correctly. So that's where we're at right now. This is going to be a major project for ASWB moving forward throughout the year. And the idea is that this will be an ongoing process. And now I'm going to let Lavina talk a little bit more about some of the details of what you can expect once we get to the point where we have that have completed the process and it's now and then in an ongoing release system, if you will, on a yearly basis or however we decide to do that. But I want to tell you there are still some unknowns in all of this, so we don't have the answer to all of the questions, but we continue to work on coming up with the answers to the questions that you may be asking. So we may not be able to answer everything, but hopefully we'll be able to answer quite a bit. So Lavina, you want to talk a little bit more detailed?
Much, Dwight, and thank you to the Texas Board for inviting us to talk with you today. My name is Lavina Harless. I'm the Senior Director of Exam Services at ASWB. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I have been doing this work for almost 17 years now. So I want to talk to you a little bit about this data that we are looking at, releasing exam data broken down by demographic performance. And what that will look like, we anticipate, is that we are going to be looking at several variables. The first one being age, the second one being race and ethnicity, and the third one being gender. So we will be breaking down the pass rates in those manners. We're also going to be looking at the number of exam attempts and what that looks like as well. We know that there has been a request for disability status and how folks with maybe disability accommodations, how they perform on the exam. That's going to be a little bit tricky for ASWB to do, at least with this initial data release, because of the way that is categorized in our system and how we code that, because folks might have accommodations or special needs that are not necessarily related to a major disability. It could be anxiety disorder. So we have a hard time of deciphering those pieces out. So please hear us that we're going to be working on that, and that is one of the focus areas moving forward, but it likely will not be in this initial data release. So we are going to be looking at this by state as well as by social work program. So we will have that information available to social work programs. And I want to take a minute here to talk about the social work programs that we really want to connect with the social work programs across the US, and of course in particular in Texas, as we're talking with you all about this, and provide the educators even more data than what we have before. So typically we have sold data to educators on how their educational program is performing in terms of how their candidates are performing on the exam. And that's just a straight pass rate. And we compare that to the national, and we give them that information. And we also give them attempts as well. And again, that was something that we charged for in the past. We also have had a group review practice test made up of retired test questions that we've charged for educators. So along with this set of data that we're going to be working on as we're analyzing it and releasing it, we're also going to be adding data as well for social work programs to look at how their students are performing on each of the major content area domains of the exam. So it goes beyond some of these race and ethnicity and age and gender questions, and it really talks about the content and how their students are performing. So we really feel like the intersectionality of both of those things will be very helpful for the educators as they move forward, as well as we have a suite of resources that we're preparing for educators. The group review practice test will be free. All the rest of this data will be free. We will be doing a training for educators on how to write high stakes quality, high stakes multiple choice questions so they can integrate those into their classroom. And we will provide a wraparound guide for the group review practice test. And we're really trying to connect with educators to help them help their students prepare to demonstrate their competence on a high stakes licensing exam. So that's our goal. And along with this data release, also you have to hear comes support to the educators in this space as we all move into this area of this reckoning that we need to do around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how ASWB wants to be part of that conversation, and we want to be part of progress for the profession, but we also, have to maintain this valid, reliable, legally defensible exam program on the board's behalf. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm happy to answer questions as well, and I'll turn it back to maybe Jennifer or Dwight if you wanted to say a few more things.
Maybe just one additional piece of information that the board may want to know is that 2 days ago we met with Will Francis from the Texas chapter, along with several other individuals representing other groups in Texas, and we were sharing with them a lot of the information that we're sharing with you. So there's been some discussion with the coalition that wrote the letter to you as well. And at this point, we just got a response back from Will Francis today, how supportive they are of the process that we're going through to move forward with trying to present this information. So I want you to have at least know that as well, that we have been in conversation with them so they know what our plans are, and they're very supportive of those plans.
So I'd like to
Before I ask a question.
okay.
So sorry, Sarah, for interrupting, but Lavina, I had just a couple questions before we move forward, if you don't mind. One of the things, my background is I come from the education world as far as being a board member. And one of the things that has always trumped me a little bit about pass rate is there's no indication of when that student may have graduated from a program. Is that something that you're looking at? Because I mean, sometimes somebody may wait 5, 8, 10 years before they take that test.
Yes, thank you so much for bringing that up, Brian. And that is a point of consideration that we are using as we are looking at this data, because how is it going to be useful if you're giving program data for somebody who's, been graduated for 10 years, to your point. So I think that, we're really going to try to hone in on that as much as possible, given the data that we have, and we'll continue to do that as we continue to refine our administrative registration process for the exam program, and making sure, we have a year of graduation, but we don't even have the month of graduation that we're recording. So that makes it hard to, look at some of these pieces as well. So we're going to be adding that month as well in the future, but we are going to be looking at that and figuring out how we can really hone in on what years folks graduated and what that's representative of.
Okay.
So thank you
good.
for that.
Thank you. And then second, and my final thing is, although race and ethnicity does not always include English as a second language, is ESL something that you're also going to look at?
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much for that. ESL is one of the pieces that we can tease out, and we can provide data on that. So yes, we do have information on folks who used ESL arrangements, but just understand too that not all states allow for ESL arrangements, so that it makes it tricky too. But for those who allow it, it's interesting for you to see that too. It'll be interesting. So yes, that is another data point, Brian. So thank you.
Okay, all right. That's all I have, and I think Sarah, you have the board. I mean the list of folks who may have questions.
NASW Texas is in attendance, so I'd like to allow Mr. Francis. Are you there, or are you another representative from NASW Texas?
No, thank you. This is Will Francis. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to, first of all, say thank you to the board for agreeing to look at this issue, for reaching out to ASWB, and for really helping to prioritize how we grow social workers here in Texas. And I think that the testing is such an important piece of that. And then, as Dwight mentioned, I just want to say a huge thanks to ASWB. They met with us, with a representative from the Texas Clinical Association, from the Central Texas Association of Black Social Workers, and a couple of other states. They were super open on the call. We were 30,000 feet into the weeds. It was a really, I think, productive discussion, and I very much appreciated that. They covered a lot of the high points. I sent some notes to Brian Brumley from the call that if you'd like to share that with you all, happy to do it. I think overall, sort of where we're at is excited anticipation on this, but not necessarily certain about what the next steps will look like once we start to receive this data. We really need to see the data itself to see what it shows. And I'm really hoping that this board really uses the public stakeholder space to bring in feedback on how this can work. Definitely understand that ASWB has their own process, but I think here in Texas, we maybe could look at a coalition of schools that we are brought together, other stakeholders, the board itself, to really discuss how this data is going to shape how we look at the social work programs here in our schools. So again, like I said, my notes are out there. Happy to send those on. I think the only other thing that I did want to mention that I was excited about that ASWB did not mention is that they are working on a workforce report, which we were very, very excited about. I know that BHEC is doing the same thing. So I would just encourage there be some connection there to make sure that if there's any overlap or if there's any ability to share some resources, that would be done, because I think that their workforce report will really help what's happening here in Texas. So again, thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. I also see a couple of others who've raised their hands and wanted to give them an opportunity to ask the ASWB members or the board questions if they had them on this topic. So Cindy Marzat, can you unmute, and do you have a question?
Yes, I just had a question. I didn't know if it would necessarily be pertaining to ASWB, but I was wondering if there's any way to consider like more opportunities for students when they're going through the programs for social work to have, like when you see LPC associate, programs, like more paid internships for social workers, I guess more opportunities for them to be able to get their experience and also be considered for, temporary employment, like the professional counselors when they're going through their programs.
So, Ms. Marzette, that would actually be more related to CSWE, the Council on Social Work Education, who sets the parameters for field internships.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marzette. And Sandra Martin. Get my mouse over there. Will you unmute, and do you have a question?
Yes, am I unmuted now?
Yes, you are.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. Just a question, Mr. Hymans. I had seen some material recently that was disturbing for me, and it was a little bit disturbing to know that among the associations that you met with, Christian Counselors of Texas was not one of them. We are very interested in this issue as well. And I'm the governmental liaison for that. So I will be finding a way to get in touch with you because we would certainly want to have a voice in this process. The message that was disturbing that made me disturbed this time was I saw a printed document that social workers in Texas don't consider themselves controlled by Texas law, that they are controlled by the ASWB, I think, or A, whichever it is. And that's a little bit disturbing. So anyway, I just wanted to know, I'll be in touch with you because we certainly want a voice in this matter. Thank you.
Sarah, may I comment?
It's Sandra, but yes, sir, you may.
Oh, well, I was referring to Sarah, the staff member for the board, but
Oh,
is that appropriate, Sarah, for me to comment?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Sandra. I appreciate that feedback. And what I want to encourage you to think about is as we move forward with our social work coalition process, which is going to be starting, we thought it was going to start actually this weekend, but because of COVID and other factors, we had to postpone. We are going to be setting up a series of community input sessions with
very
the
good.
social work community. And we will certainly add your group to the list so that you can participate in that in the process in that manner. We certainly want to hear from as many groups as possible. So thank you for making us aware, and we will certainly include you on the list.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Okay, Sarah's letting me know we have 2 more individuals related to this topic, and we will take these 2, and then we need to move back to our item number 3.
Aisha Madden, can you unmute? Ms. Madden, are you there? We'll go on to Kathy Ryder. Can you unmute? You have a question for the board? Ms. Ryder? Then we'll close the discussion on this topic. Any closing remarks from our guests from ASWB?
I'll real quickly let you know that we intend to communicate a great deal about the process that we're going through with the data, examining this data. So we'll be in touch with the board on a regular basis, giving you updates. We want to make sure you know what's going on. And if you ever have any questions, or if you feel like you don't have information you need, we certainly would encourage you to reach out to us, and we'll try to give you as much information as we can. We want to be very transparent in this process and keep people informed. So look for more information to come on a regular basis from ASWB. And again, thank you for involving us in your in the process and opening up this opportunity to continue the conversation. It's very much appreciated by ASWB.
All right, thank you, Dwight. Jennifer Lavina for joining us, and y'all stay out of the bad weather up there, and we'll stay here in the cold in Texas without snow.
Thank you so much for being here.
All right, so we will now officially move from item 15 back to agenda item number 3, which is board review and possible action regarding appeals of applications for licensure denials. We have 2 remaining, Christina Robertson and Tammy Thompson. So we will take Ms. Robertson first, and get it pulled up here.
Ms. Robertson, are you able to unmute?
I believe she's also represented by counsel. Rodney Montez, I think, is in attendance.
Attorney Montez.
This is Rodney Montez. Ms. Robertson, are you there?
Attorney Montez? Are you
Yes.
on?
Can you? Oh,
Yes, this is Rodney. Can you all hear me?
Barely.
Very faint.
Is that any better?
Nope.
Huh. Okay. Ms. Robertson, are you there?
yes. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Ms. Robertson. And Rodney, we can hear you. It's just really, really faint.
Okay. Let me try something else if
Now
you
you're
don't
getting
mind just
better.
waiting a second.
You're getting louder.
Okay, is that better?
That's way better.
Okay. All right, as long as everybody can hear me, but most importantly, Ms. Robertson, thank you, board, for having us. I'm not sure if you all are going to go first, Ms. Fassholz.
The board members have received the materials that were in the board records and that you've provided. So if you have any additional information you'd like to share or summarize, go ahead.
Okay, yes, thank you. And really, yes, as Ms. Fassholz said, we did submit a packet with an explanation regarding Ms. Robertson's application and appeal of the denial based on the criminal conviction from 2003. And I'll be brief. Ms. Robertson does have a statement to make to you all, but basically the board staff denied her application based on a serious felony conviction back in 2003. What we did submit to the board was evidence of her rehabilitation from an addiction to methamphetamine when she was in her late teens and early 20s. Actually, she has, in speaking with Ms. Robertson, it's a compelling story, and not to be cliched or anything, but you know, she had a pretty rough life as a teen and as an early adult, but has come a long way in frankly, you know, doing things more than a lot of people in her situation when it comes to her education, accomplishments, and professional licensure accomplishments. She is licensed as a licensed chemical dependency counselor through the Department of State Health and Services. And she's been a LCDCI since 2019 and is now wanting to move forward with her LMSW. She can explain and provide information regarding her rehabilitation, her education, she has an MA, I believe, as well. And we did submit plenty of letters of recommendation and support. And she can also comment on her goals as far as this particular licensure is concerned. With that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Robertson. Thank you.
I would like to thank you for your time in this matter. I knew going into the social work field, it was going to be an uphill battle because of the crime that I committed, because of my addiction. I have been lucky to have social workers in my life to help show me the way. Without social workers, I would probably still be a statistic because of the family I was raised in. My goal is to be able to extend my hand to those who are still in addiction. Excuse me, I get so emotional. Because without a social worker, I wouldn't be standing where I am today. I wouldn't have been able to see past my family's issues and my addiction. And now I am able, where I'm working, to extend my hand and help ladies out of addiction. With my degree, I will be working straight with addiction because there's so many advances in social work, and we believe people can change, and I am living proof of that. And I would like to ask for consideration for my LMSW. Thank you. If you have any questions, please ask.
Thank you, Ms. Robertson. Attorney Hurt, do you have anything you want to advise the board at this time, or?
Just that the statute that I evaluated this application under, the board does have discretion to approve or deny the application and approve a criminal history. The way the statute is worded is that under the board rules, this conviction relates to the duties and responsibilities of the licensed occupation. I'm not contesting any of the facts in her criminal history or any rehabilitation that she's had post conviction. I do want to highlight some of the factors that the board can consider, which is also in the statute regarding past criminal activity, which is what this has been about. Ms. Robertson was in her early 20s when this occurred. Her conviction was 18 years ago. And that she has not had any additional criminal charges that the board can consider, such as additional similar charges. So this is a discretionary decision on the board's behalf that if they would like to approve or deny her application.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. Any board members have a question for Ms. Robertson or Attorney Montez? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion related to the appeal submitted by Christina Robertson.
This is Martha. I'm going to make the motion to approve Ms. Robertson's appeal and to allow her to sit for the LMSW exam and file an application for that.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. Audrey, did you make a second?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the application of Christina Robertson for to move forward with the LMSW. All those in favor?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
just
sir.
1 second. I just want to make sure we understand, staff or Sarah, this isn't a application to sit for the exam. This is actually an application for licensure, correct?
It's an application for licensure, is my understanding.
Yeah.
I would ask the board to clarify, are you allowing staff to then proceed with the application process? Or are
Yes.
you instructing staff to no longer review the application and qualifications and simply approve the license? Because at this point, the only issue before you is the criminal history issue. Is that correct?
Okay.
Attorney Andrew? Did licensing staff bring up any other issues?
Not that I'm aware of. In the criminal history review process, it's the only thing I look at. And as far as I know, that's the only reason I recommended denial of the application. The crime was, child endangerment. As you can see in the board materials.
So I've not reviewed all of Ms. Robertson's file. All that was presented to me was this issue on past history.
So with Martha's motion, the motion was made to move forward with the application process. Correct, Martha?
Correct. So I guess I need to modify that to the motion to
I think your motion
allow.
I think your motion is good as it was made, because we're going to continue looking at the application to make sure there are no other factors involved.
Is that correct, Sarah?
So we have the motion by Martha and a second by Audrey. Any further discussion as far as asking staff to continue the application process for Ms. Robertson? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Okay, motion does carry. So, Ms. Robertson, what will happen is staff will now review all factors related to your application, and you will be notified by the.
I'll send you an email about what's transpired today, and staff will continue with the application review. And if any deficiency exists, they will contact you on how to remedy that deficiency.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Montez. All right, we will now move to final agenda item on number 3, which is appeal regarding Tammy Thompson. So which attorney is, which one of you three handled this one?
I did.
All right. Want to go ahead and talk about this one?
Sure. In 2007, Ms. Thompson was convicted of felony aggravated assault causing bodily injury. Section 108 of the Occupations Code states that an application shall be denied for an applicant who has been previously convicted of the commission of a felony offense involving the use or threat of force.
And Ms. Thompson, are you able to unmute?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Can. The board's been provided all the materials that were in board records or that you have subsequently provided. Is there anything you'd like to add or summarize?
Sure. It was my understanding, of course, that it's up to the board for approval. Even what Mr. Clark had just said. I too had just hit a really rock bottom spot in my life, had started doing drugs, and in only those couple of years, and wound up in prison. And technically I was really glad I was there, because I was able to pull myself out of everything and get back to who I knew I was. And then when I got out with the help of social workers, that's really what took me to get my master's and pass the LMSW exam, was because if it hadn't have been for those people, I wouldn't have been able to get on my feet. So I thought, well, now I've seen both sides of the tracks. You know, what better way for me to help someone in the community, because I've already been there. Like, I know that walk and I know how difficult it is. And, you know, ever since then, even being a case manager, I know that I've impacted so many people's lives just in, Tarrant County alone. And it's definitely my calling. It was definitely what I was meant to do. What I did was horrible. Had I not been on drugs, would I have done that? Absolutely not. I've been clean for 10 years. I'm now 7 years exactly from discharge of parole. I even talk to my parole officer to this day. I am a good person, and I know that I deserve, and I've worked really hard for where I am right now. And I would really like for my application to, for my licensure to be approved.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. So, Attorney Clark, in this situation, because it signified, crime against a person or whatever that terminology was, assault. Do we have discretion in this case?
My reading is that you do not. I don't think there's any room here.
Okay. Because that, what is it, 882.42 in the occupation code or whichever code it is, it just says prior convictions. It doesn't give a time frame, does it?
Correct.
So at this point, just to clarify, if the board does not have discretion to act, Ms. Thompson still has the right to appeal to the council?
Correct.
Well, she will actually appeal to SOA. Once the board denies here, she could file an appeal at SOA, but the statute doesn't, there's no wiggle room here in the statute. So I don't see how anything coming from SOA would be any different than what Brian has recommended. Hold on just a second, Ms. Thompson.
Okay.
I'm gonna put that statute up on the screen so y'all can see what Brian is talking about. This is the operative statute right here. And it's this second one. A licensing authority shall, that's mandatory. That's the operative portion of the statute right there. There's no discretion given in that, unfortunately.
So, Attorney Clark, do you or Daryl, do you want to explain to Ms. Thompson what her next action would be?
I'll be the bad guy, Brian.
Okay.
So you don't have to be. Ms. Thompson, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Unfortunately, the statutes do not give us the discretion to admit you into the profession. Chapter 108 of the Occupations Code is a very specific chapter that it's kind of strange in that it only applies to psychologists and social workers with regard to the council. It does not apply to LPCs or MFTs, if I'm remembering right, just psychologists and social workers. Unfortunately, your conviction is one that involves the use or threat of force, and as such, the statute does not give us discretion to waive or allow you into the profession, regardless of the amount of time that has passed since your conviction or the completion of your sentence. I take no pleasure in reporting that to you, I can assure you. But that is the law, and we have to follow that. Now, your steps after this, you can appeal the decision over to what we call the State Office of Administrative Hearings, but I'm going to be very candid with you. They are bound by the same law that we are bound. That ALJ is not going to be able to disregard that statute. So while I'm not going to put words in that ALJ's mouth, I just have to be very candid with you. I don't see how they can decide it any differently whenever myself, Mr. Clark, Mr. Hyde, all of us are attorneys. We've all looked at this. We can't figure out any other way to read this statute other than requiring a denial of your application. So I don't want to tell you that you can't appeal it. You certainly can. You have that right. If I were in your shoes, I probably would. But I'm just going to be candid with you. I think it's probably going to be fruitless. But what I would recommend, and I understand if you don't believe me, you don't like what you're hearing, I get it. I would recommend that you go visit with an attorney, sit down with somebody and talk to them and let them explain to you the situation, get their opinion, an outside opinion.
No, I totally understand. And I pretty much expected what you're saying right now. However, I am curious though. I followed all of the steps as far as like submitting a background evaluation, submitted all the records. I was approved to test, passed the test. So why was I allowed to even go that far and spend all this money on something I couldn't get?
Did you apply for the exam or take the exam directly with ASWB?
Yes.
Okay, so you did that before you actually applied with us.
No, I was actually approved under the old board. So I had done everything up until that point, and then y'all took over, or the new board took over. And
Okay.
now here's the problem.
I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you. That's about the best I can say. The only thing I can tell you is that there is a mechanism in the law. It's called a criminal history evaluation letter that individuals can seek before they ever begin the application process. And
I did that.
it's you did that, you paid
Yes.
for, and
Yes.
what did your evaluation letter say?
It says I was approved to test.
No, that's not what it would say. That's not an evaluation letter. A criminal history evaluation letter is a mechanism where you ask specifically about your criminal history before you ever begin the application process.
Yes, sir. I did that and I paid for it.
Okay, so
I mean, that was in 2019, so I don't remember the exact wordage, and it's filed away. I could go get that. But yes, I did do that background evaluation.
okay, do we have that, Brian?
I'm looking.
I don't have a record of it.
I see two records for Tammy Thompson. I don't see a criminal history evaluation record. I'm checking further.
Yeah, I paid the $50 for that to begin with. And that was before I even started anything.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't move forward with anything until I got the letter back from the background evaluation.
Do you still have that letter?
I do.
Have
Can
you
you find that and send that to us?
Yeah.
have you used another name?
No, ma'am. Well, no. It would have either been Whitehead, but I've been married since I've done that evaluation. So no, it would have been Thompson.
Yeah, I find no record under Whitehead.
Okay. Yeah, it's Thompson.
Okay, well, here's how, let me tell you, I'm just going to lay my cards on the table here on this. If you've got a letter that says that where HHSC, this agency would not have issued that because in 2019, we didn't have control over that program. But if HHSC sent you a letter that said your criminal history will not render you ineligible, that will not change this board's decision. We're going to have to follow the statute, but that is certainly an argument. It's a good argument that you can make on your appeal to SOA, and we'll see what the ALJ says on that. But our hands are tied here, and especially without even seeing the letter, I'm certainly not going to advise the board to go against what the statute says.
Yeah,
So,
I'm sorry. I just assumed that would have been in my my file.
yeah.
I mean, because otherwise I would have never even moved forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah,
Spent
I
all
hear
this
you.
time and money passing the test.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. So see if you find that, dig it up. Assuming the board votes to deny your application in just a moment.
Right.
Find that letter, file your appeal, and then we'll have to see what an ALJ says. Because if an ALJ says, "Hey, agency, you screwed this one up," here's, and they recommend letting you in, then that's fine. We'll go with that.
Okay.
But
ALJ is the administrative law judge that presides over a state office of administrative hearing, just to be clear.
Okay.
Yeah. But right now we're bound by that statute. So that's where we stand.
Would I send that to Mr. Clark? That's who I've been communicating with thus far.
Yeah, send it to Brian.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Thompson. So we still need to take action on this. So I'll need a motion. Somebody.
This is Martha. I'll make the motion that we deny Ms. Thompson's appeal
Okay.
for licensure.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I think Jennifer, did you second that? Okay.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second. So all those in favor of denying the application for Tammy Thompson, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. So motion carries, the application is denied. And from that, Ms. Thompson, you have information now about finding your evaluation letter and sending that to Attorney Clark to start the appeal process of the next step moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Thompson. And I guess, will she get an email from you too, Sarah?
Likely from Attorney Clark,
okay.
but I'll follow up with the attorneys.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll be sending her a letter telling her how to appeal and the time frame.
Okay, all right, thank you, Brian. So, all right, we're all the way down through number 3. So we'll move to agenda item number 4, which is board review and possible action regarding orders to be executed by the board. So,
My
Sarah.
understanding is that there are no orders for the board to consider.
All right, hearing none, we will move forward to agenda 5, board review and possible action regarding contested cases from the State Office of Administrative Hearings, or SOA, and we did not have any in our packet, so I'm assuming there are none.
That's my understanding. Any updates from the attorneys? They're nodding, so no.
Okay, they're all in agreement. So we will move to agenda item number 6, report of agreed orders executed by the council's executive director. So we have those in our packet. So Sarah, do we need to take these all at once, or do you need to independently?
No action is required by the board, but it's here for the board's information. If there are any questions regarding the report, I'll try to field those questions as best I can.
All right, board members, anybody have any questions regarding Heel, Jackson, Panasa, I don't even know how to say that, Paula Pasanini, or Parker, Michelle Parker? Anybody have any questions regarding those orders? All right, hearing none, we don't have to take action on this, so we will move to agenda item number 7, cases dismissed during the previous time period.
And the board was provided a written report on the cases dismissed in the first quarter of fiscal year 2022. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer any questions you may have.
All right, anybody have any questions regarding agenda item number 7? All right, hearing none, we will move to agenda item 8, status report of quarterly enforcement case activities.
The board was provided a written report. If you have any questions about that report, I'll try to answer those questions.
Looks like our numbers are moving. Well, let me look. Yeah, we're moving in a positive direction. So that's a good thing. Anybody have any questions regarding that item number 8? Okay, hearing none, we will move to agenda item 9, report of compliance with agreed orders.
The board was provided a written report. If you have any questions on the report, I will try to answer those questions.
Oh, yeah, I did see that. So anybody have any questions regarding agenda item number 9, reports of agreed orders? Hearing none, we'll move to agenda item number 10, which is a report out from the committee chairs. So first A is report from Ethics Committee, and that is me, and I have nothing to report. Agenda item 10B, Ms. Mosier, report from licensing standard and qualifications. Anything to report there, Martha?
I do not have anything.
Okay. So we'll move to 10C, report from Professional Development Committee. I also chair that, and we have nothing to report. So we'll move to 10D, report from Rules. Martha, anything from Rules?
From Rules, I believe we did have a meeting. However, I was not able to attend that meeting. And that was a review of many of the items that we're going to be reviewing on this agenda, correct, Sarah?
That's correct.
Yeah, we'll have those actions regarding those proposed rules just here in a couple minutes. So
right.
So that concludes the reports out from the committee chairs. So we'll move to agenda item number 11, discussion and possible action to re-elect or replace public member delegate to the Texas Behavioral Health Executive Council per Texas Occupations Code 507051. Ben Morris, whose term as delegate expires February 1st, 2022 per 22 Texas Administrative Code 881.4 council member terms. So if is my memory right, did Ben ask to be replaced, or did Ben?
He said he would not decline, but he would be happy to, quote, share the love.
Okay,
unquote.
okay. I couldn't remember exactly what his statement was. So this would be for a public member. So that would be, who would be eligible there? I guess Asia, Megan, and
Mr. Morris are the
and
three
Ben.
public-
Yeah, those are the three public members. Ben's been there. Megan's been there. Asia, would you unmute and tell us what you think about a possible nomination to the BHEC board as far as the public member? BHEC meets quarterly. Your responsibility would be basically what you do as far as meeting attendance would be very similar to this meeting. They are Zoom-based meetings at this time. What is your response if you were to be nominated?
I would accept the nomination.
Okay. So hearing that, since Mr. Morris is not here, I guess we could be ugly if he didn't, we could just say, since you weren't here, we'd leave you there, but I don't know about that. Ben's been a good member and participated in the meeting. So his idea to share the love, does anybody want to make a motion to nominate Asia Rogers?
This is Martha. I'll make the motion for Asia Rogers to be appointed to the BHEC Council.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I think Audrey seconded that. Is that right?
Yes.
Audrey? Okay, yeah. So hearing that, we have a motion and a second to nominate or to elect Asia Rogers to nominate. So how do we elect her?
Make a motion to.
Okay,
to vote.
okay. So yeah, first we have to nominate. So we have a motion and a second for that. So all in favor of nomination? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, she is nominated. So now we will have an election. So we need to elect. So all those in favor of electing Asia Rogers to the BHEC board, please also signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Seeing the same, she is now elected as the public member to the Behavioral Health Executive Council Board. Okay, that's that. Okay. Agenda item number 12, discussion and possible action regarding public comment on proposed rules published in the October 1st register and recommendation to Texas Behavioral Health Executive Council, the council, concerning adoption of proposed rules entitled 22 of the Texas Administrative Code. So board, you have those. They have been reviewed by the Rules Committee, which Ms. Mosier chairs. Martha, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items that are proposed. Martha, do you have any information or discussion concerning these that you'd like to provide?
I don't have anything in addition to what everyone has already had the opportunity to look at.
Okay, I guess
I believe from the Rules Committee discussion, it was all good. But I wasn't there, so if anybody else was present.
So if I could, the Rules Committee met on December 7th. They did not discuss agenda item 12, which is rules that are now for this board to consider whether to recommend adoption. they discussed agenda item 13.
Okay.
Which was rule changes suggested by the council standardization work group.
Okay.
So am I confused? Are we on 12?
We're
or are
on
we
12.
13?
We're on
Okay.
12. Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, so on 12, these rules have been proposed, published, and now are able to be adopted by this board to then be
So
finalized.
this board would make a recommendation to the council.
To the council, okay.
As to whether to adopt, change, withdraw, or whatever is appropriate for this board.
Okay. So just briefly, board minutes, which is A 781-206. We've been recording board minutes and publishing them in that manner. B is qualifications for licensure. It is as described there in your minutes. C, recognition as a council approved supervisor and the supervising process. That is also in your minutes. D 781-406, required documentation of qualifications for licensure, is in your minutes. And 781 or E 781-412, the exam requirement and limit on number of exam attempts. So those are also in your minutes. So could I have a motion concerning the adoption of these 5 rules?
Brian, I have a question.
Yes.
Before we move into that. So on D 7081.406, which is the documentation qualifications for licensure. And what that is referring to is what we were discussing up in agenda item number 3 with some of our appeals related to the supervision experience immediately preceding the date of an initial or upgrade application. If we approve this here, does that affect what we are recommending we take a look at and make some changes to? Or should that be put on hold and we do it all at the next go round?
So if you recommend adoption today, then the adoption would go before the council in February. And if the council approves the adoption, it would likely be submitted and become effective before the end of March. And then you are free to make changes to this rule then at your April meeting, without any delay because of this rulemaking process.
Okay, and that's
what would happen if we just did nothing about agenda item D today?
That would probably cause problems because
Yeah, that will.
Yeah, the rule would be open and it wasn't withdrawn, so it would be open until it dies on the vine. And it's better to either, withdraw the rule officially or adopt it than just leave it alone. That would then you wouldn't be able to mess with the rule when you make changes later down the road.
Okay. So if we adopt it today, we can make we can still have it on our agenda for April to make changes in the process we discussed earlier.
Correct.
Okay.
I
That's
would
what
not.
I wanted to make sure of.
Yeah, I would not recommend withdrawing it because the changes in here are meant to correct some problems we have for reinstatements.
Right.
And I don't want those folks hung up during the interim when we're trying to fix it otherwise. So.
Gotcha. Okay. Sarah? Any further discussion, questions regarding agenda item 12, items A through E? If not, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adopt these 5 changes.
So moved.
Have a
I'll second.
motion from Megan and a second from Martha. All those in favor signify by saying aye, raising your hand. Any opposed? Hearing none, seeing none, item 12 is adopted. Now, agenda item 13, discussion and possible action concerning potential changes in Title 22 of the Texas Administrative Code put forth by the Council's Standardization Work Group and reviewed by the Social Work Board's Rules Committee. So these were the ones that were reviewed in the December 7th meeting.
Correct.
So, and Martha, you indicated you were not in attendance. Who was there for that? Jennifer and Audrey. Okay. So,
And I think that,
oh, and Ben, and he's not here today. So, okay. So in that, is there information that y'all want to provide for A, B, or C? Jennifer, no. Audrey, anything? Not really? Okay. So, so the action on these is sort of the initial process, right, Sarah? We're
the Rules Committee did recommend these changes to the board.
okay. So hearing that, the Rules Committee has recommended these changes to the board for adoption and then moving them up the chain to the council. So need a motion to adopt these changes.
One quick question, Mr. Chair. Sarah, did we, in the rule, I'm looking at it here, we've got two different I'm sorry, the CE rule, the standardized CE rule.
781, 501.
501. We've got two different versions of B. I can't remember, I can't remember if the committee recommended one of those versions or if we left both of them in there for the board to decide. Either way, we got to decide what. It's just B is word. I've given you two different versions to pick from.
So Rules Committee, Jennifer, Audrey, did y'all have input on what Daryl's talking about? If you can open 13A 781 501 in your packet.
I can share it.
Okay. There's two B's there.
And I'm digging through my notes from the meeting.
Sarah, I was trying to look for my notes from that day too. I don't remember selecting one of those though. Audrey, do you?
I think at the meeting, it was a discussion of a previous version of this document.
Mm-hmm. This may have been a product of discussions of that previous document, and we were, I think what has happened. Okay, here's what I think happened. I think we were trying to figure out how to do the Texas Register was not going to let me do it in the way that I had it worded in the version the Rules Committee saw. And so I'm giving you two different versions to pick from here that will be acceptable to the Texas Register. If I remember, Brenda, is that kind of how we landed with what we've got?
That is correct, Daryl.
Okay. All right. So this is not something the Rules Committee would looked at. It does the same thing that the Rules Committee looked at, but the Texas Register wasn't going to let me publish the rule in the same format that the Rules Committee looked at. So I've had to come up with two different versions. It's y'all's preference, whichever way. My preference is the first version, but it's whatever y'all prefer.
I'll defer to Audrey and Jennifer. As Rules Committee, do y'all have, are y'all in agreement with what Daryl's indicating, that we just adopt B, the first version as presented?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. So hearing that, we need to, we will adopt, so we need a motion for agenda item 13 to adopt the rules with A 781-501 being the first version of B for all three rule changes. Patrick, you have some input?
Yeah, Daryl, did you want me to discuss with them the 781-805 possibly? We talked about that briefly, or do you want to just move forward with the changes in that are to conform with the CE rule changes, but there was a potential change we could talk about to shorten that particular rule and take out some of the descriptive language that's in it, because honestly, oh, thank you, Sarah. Honestly, so those changes are there to basically match up what the changes we're doing in the other rules. You change one rule, you got to change make conforming changes to the other one. But what I'd like to suggest is something the LPC board is moving towards and the site board has done, and I think it would be helpful, is I understand why there's sort of a descriptive language with those particular rule citations when they have that, but I would suggest taking them out and truly making it just a pure schedule where you have rule number 1, that's a reprimand, rule number 2, that's a probated suspension, because that's really all that rule needs to be. It just needs to be something that determines what that particular sanction would be for that type of rule violation. And any of that extra language, it's, first of all, it's not necessary, but there is potential issues that could be caused if we didn't describe it similar to how the actual rule reads. And if an ALJ reads that and says, oh, I don't find that appropriately describes what your rule violation you're describing, and so that they would disregard it. So
Patrick, would you like me to share the screen to show what you're talking about?
Showing the LPC version.
yeah, the LPC version, what they've done is that middle language where it says the rule language, all of that's being stricken out, and it's being proposed to basically just have the number and then the violation. So it would be something similar to that.
For that, so that's theirs is A, B, C, D, different schedules.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
so Attorney Patrick, do I understand that you're proposing the social work board follow the LPC format that's displayed here?
Well, Brenda has a format. Why don't you let her try to share her screen, and maybe that might just be easier to.
Not the LPC format.
It's similar to it. It's just different. So it would be like this, where you have that rule. It'd all be numerical, and so you would start with 301, 302, and it would go down, and then you would have all the levels, and then which one it falls under. So it's truly a schedule.
One of the things we always worry about at the staff level is if we, like Patrick said, if we make changes to one rule and then we don't get it in the schedule of sanctions, that can hang us up. If we get over to SOA and an ALJ says, well, your substantive text describing the violation doesn't match the rule you say they have violated, so I'm not going to follow that. I'm going to go with the default. Well, if the default is a reprimand and we're talking about much more serious conduct, we can find ourselves in a bad situation there. We have also found that ALJs tend to like these schedules because it's very ministerial. It's easy to say, here's the rule you're cited. We just go over, boom, here it is. And we don't have to read all of this descriptive text in there. So I get why the descriptive text is in there, but from a very functional and practical standpoint of how the lawyers and the ALJs use it, this is a better format to do it.
And substantively, this changes nothing. It's all.
Yeah, it doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
Just a different way of looking at it. Is that what I'm getting?
So
yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
When the matrices were established a number of years ago, part of the issue was that a particular provision, or for example, subsection A, might have been more of a paragraph than a sentence. And I'm not recalling any particular instance, but a number of boards then would say for this type of, what the violation of the first sentence would be this sanction, the violation of the second sentence would be this, because they were grouped in a paragraph under subsection A. So have we looked at the rules in regard to how the rules themselves are written?
Yeah.
That if a violation of subsection A is the same violation, not any differentiation between the first sentence and the last sentence of that subsection?
Yeah, I didn't notice any conflicts or issues in building out that schedule where we would have conflicting ones or something that would be only for one half of a paragraph and the other part of a paragraph. It looked to me when I did it and that's why when we put it in numerical order, you would have conflicting ones where you would have the same ones next to each other. All of them were built out. They're all separated by the specific rule number. So the short answer is no, I don't think that there's a problem with that.
let me, Patrick, we're not talking about actually proposing this change right now, right?
Well, we could if you want to, but if you want to hold off, we could look at this further later. I think that there does need to be those conforming changes.
Yeah, we need to make those conforming changes,
Right.
but the move to the grid, I think what we wanted to do was just kind of broach the subject with y'all today. And we didn't want to go waste any more time building the thing if y'all are all like, no, we don't like that. But so if y'all are like, okay, yeah, that sounds like something we might want to look at, then we'll keep working on it and we'll bring it back to the rules committee with kind of a more polished version. Let them mull it over and soak on it, and then we'll take it through the regular process. It'll take it a little bit longer to get through because now we've got a change that's about to start, that's going to go through. So it might take it a while, but I just didn't want to waste a bunch of time doing it. If y'all are like, no, we like what we got, we don't want to change it. That's kind of what I had in mind.
Having served on ethics for quite a while now, I like the matrix, but I see the benefit in what Patrick's created here as a simple point and shoot kind of grid. So I would be in favor of moving forward with that and having it on a future agenda for adoption. Anybody else have any input?
I agree with that. I think it makes things a lot more simple, and also I think it alleviates the potential for some language to be in there that maybe leads to problems down the road with it too. So I think it's a cleaner way of doing things.
I'm a fan of less words. So, all right. So I guess, Patrick, we'll just ask that you continue with what you're doing, and we'll then now move on to where we are on agenda item 13. We're needing a motion for adoption of the Rules Committee's suggestions for changes.
This is Martha. I'll make a motion for the adoption of the recommendations from the Rules Committee, items A, B, and C under agenda item 13.
Okay.
And that's with version 1 of subsection B in the standardized rule.
Version 1 of section B.
All right.
Second.
We have a second for Jennifer. So having a motion and a second, all those in favor of the motion indicate by raising your hand saying aye. Motion does carry.
And for clarification, these rules are to be forwarded to the council for publication as proposed rules is the next step in this process.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Agenda item 14, discussion, possible action regarding jurisprudence exam. We have that here.
That was provided to the board as a written report. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on that report.
Anybody, having looked through it, I didn't see anything different than pretty much what we always get.
And the only thing that was different was that there's 2 reports in your media materials because we made significant changes to align with the rules. So one report reflects prior to those changes being made. The second report is less remarkable because the changes were made and alleviated a lot of the questions about this doesn't line up with the rule or that kind of thing.
And it's still this is great, this is horrible, it takes forever kind of comments in the thing that we're going to get from here on out. So this is a necessary evil, and it does allow for individuals who take it to receive 3 hours of continuing education credit. So hopefully folks can see the value in learning in the future.
Now, I will say, Mr. Chair, I think with the standardized CE rules, that 3 drops to a 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sarah has.
But that rules still has to travel through the whole rulemaking process. That's not the law right now.
So for now, they're getting 3.
Correct.
So in the future, when they get 1, we'll get more complaints maybe.
Yeah.
So, something to look forward to. All right. So we don't have to take action. This is just
simply
a report. So we'll move on. Item number 15 in our agenda, we have already addressed. So that was our meeting with ASWB. So we're on to 16. Discussion concerning reported limited opportunities for LMSWs to accrue post-licensure supervised experience hours. And that's,
I think, Daryl, you wanted to,
share something with us.
I thought this was something that Dolores had wanted on the agenda.
yes, it is.
Yeah, because I'm totally drawing a blank as to what I would speak to on this.
I have a note, and perhaps I numbered it, but I have a note that you wanted to share section 501.351 of the Occupations Code.
That's going to be the psychology board, their delegation statute. One of the things that came up, and I can't remember, Sarah, where this came up, but we were in a meeting, Sarah and I, and it was Dolores, and I don't remember who else was there. One of the issues, it was Rules Committee?
Correct.
Okay, so Audrey and Jennifer, okay. We were having a discussion about the difficulties in, I guess, securing training positions where people could gather their supervised experience, whether it be for independent practice or for the LCSW. And Dolores had mentioned, we were talking about it, and I said, well, I know one thing that psychology has that may be beneficial to y'all, but it's a statutory change, is they've got that statute that Sarah referenced, and that statute allows, it gives the supervisor statutory authority to delegate tasks within the scope of their practice to their supervisees, and then bill for those services as though the supervisor were providing them. So it gives you some statutory cover to be able to recoup money for services delivered by a supervisee. I don't think y'all have anything like that right now. And we were thinking that if y'all had something like that, that might increase the number of supervisors and training opportunities, because, I mean, if people can bill for it, you're going to expand your market capability. I mean, that's a business opportunity for supervisors, so it's probably going to expand your training environments. I say all that was what we discussed. There's nothing that this board can do about that because it requires a statutory change. But that, I think Dolores wanted to have that on the agenda. She's not here today, so I'm not sure what else she wanted to talk about, but I wanted to throw that out there and just kind of update y'all on those discussions we had.
Also, what was discussed was Title 8 of the Health Insurance and Other Insurance Coverages Code, because it names the licensed clinical social worker as being able to bill for insurance, is how I understood it. So that may be part of the mechanism that makes it difficult for an LMSW to gain clinical experience and be able to, and for an entity to be able to bill for that LMSW's work.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how all of that works. I leave that to the attorneys, but it appears that statutory changes would be required in either instance.
Yeah, and that's I don't know, maybe I don't know how much Will's got slated for public comment later on today, but I don't know what NASW's legislative priorities are, but that may be something that we can visit with Will about and see where that ranks in their legislative priority list.
And the clinical the clinical organization that
Kathy's,
Kathy, they may want to take that up as a point of discussion to consider. So.
Yeah.
All right. Any hearing nothing else on agenda item number 16 as a report. There's no action required. So agenda item 17, update from Executive Director concerning Department of Defense and Council on State Government's partnership with ASWB and Clinical Social Work Association, NASW, to develop Interstate Social Work Compact for Licensure Portability.
This was also requested by Ms. Science Davila, and she's not with us today. Daryl, do you have any My understanding is that it's continuing with the technical input. And the timeline that I recall was months in the future before any new milestone would be reached.
Yeah, we're actually, I'm part of the technical assistance work group. That's kind of, our job is to kind of draft what the come up with what the parameters of the compact will be. In other words, what license types, how the compact will be structured, whether you get permission, and once you get permission to practice under the compact, you can just freely move amongst the states, or you apply for permission in a particular state who is a member of the compact. Those are the types of things that we're debating. It's rocking along pretty good, and they don't like us to talk about too much outside of the work group, because the rumor mill gets to going, and then people start commenting. They start pestering people at the Council of State Governments about, well, what about this? So they don't want us talking too much about it until it's much more nailed down. But I will tell you that I am very pleased with both the it seems to be the direction we're headed in the design of the commission, and the sheer mobility that y'all's compact will, I hope will allow. I can tell you, we have learned a lot about what not to do from SIPAC, from the nursing compact, from PTOT and the medical board. Ain't nobody copying the medical compact. We all ran from that as fast as we could, but we're learning a lot about what to do, what works and what doesn't work. So that's one of the good things about coming in at this stage of the compact drafting, is everybody else has worked out the kinks for us. But I'm actually very pleased with what I'm seeing. Because I'm not seeing a lot of, it's not being drafted. I don't think it's going to be drafted very narrow. I think we're going to have a very broad compact that's going to allow for maximum licensure portability and mobility, which is what we need. I mean, that's what licensees want. If you look in the customer service survey results that I'm doing right now, our strategic surveying, one of the big gripes is licensure portability. Everybody wants to be portable, and I think this is going to go a long ways towards addressing that. So I'm very pleased. The next step will be what they call the drafting. The actual drafting team will be put together. I don't know who's going to be on that or how that's put together, but we're getting close to being done. I think I would say within probably the next 6 months, we'll be done with our part. And then it will shift over to the drafting team's role, and they will actually draft up the model legislation. And then once that gets worked out, that will be put out for public. I'm kind of generalizing this, but that will be put out for public comment and input. So it's not like they draft it and then we just start handing it out to the state legislatures. That's not how it works. So everybody will get to see it. Everybody will get to offer input on it. But I think if it goes the way I feel like it's going to go, I think y'all are going to be pretty pleased with what comes out of this. So I'm very optimistic about what's going on in it. So I like the amount of mobility it's going to allow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Any further, any other information, Daryl? Any new building progressing forward? Anything?
Oh, well, probably in June or July, we're going to be moving over to the new Bush building over in the Capitol complex. That's going to be a fun endeavor. Staff are right now trying to, our philosophy is well, we wish we could just say, look, whatever we're not taking, let it implode with the building. But we're actually having to count plastic folders, and it puts Brenda in a good mood. Brenda and Jenny are in a good mood all the time around here now. But we're working on that. So June or July, the background of where Chair Brumley is right now will probably look a little different come June or July. He'll be in a different building.
So are they really blowing this building up?
I don't know what else you do with it. I mean, it does not match the rest of the buildings in downtown Austin.
Not at all.
I can tell you. And it needs to be blown up.
It matches some communist buildings in Romania.
It does. It does.
All right. So, all right. Thank you. That'd be item 17 is complete. And then we'll move to report from the board chair, challenges, accomplishments, lawsuits, etc. regarding the general information and routine function of the board. So I don't have a lot to report. I will, I did, every now and then I do a little background stuff. And I had a coworker whose license had been lost due to issues related to moving and not updating and things like that in LCSW. And I encouraged him to use the new rules that we have related to reinstatement of license. And he went through that process, and it was a very seamless process. So I can tell you that the staff that are working on that, I think he told me it was somebody from psychology that really processed him through from start to finish, as they may have more experience in it. But it was a very successful, seamless, to me, very seamless process that worked really well. So some of the things that's happening because of BHEC are working really great. I don't get near as many emails or phone calls about problems as I did initially when we first moved over. So I'm just going to take into consideration that means things are working better. I guess we'll have a report later from Sarah concerning where we are and timeframes or delays or backlogs. So we'll hear from that. But that's really all I have. So we'll move on to
Chair Brumley. I'll add just one quick thing. You know, since BHEC began, other than the initial difficulties of taking over the regulatory programs and just the chaos and mess that ensued after all that, you know, we all lived through that. But probably there have been two big challenges that we have faced apart from that. And that one was that freeze that destroyed our licensing division. That caused more havoc than COVID did to us, to be honest with you. But I would rate that as probably the biggest factor that has impacted our performance and our ability to really perform at a maximum level. And then we've got another problem that's emerging, and I don't know what to do with it. I'm not sure that we're just going to have to ride through it. And that is staff retention and employment. With the job market, what it is right now, it is difficult to recruit staff. We've got some positions that we have advertised for time and time and time again, and nobody applies. Or we had, you know, you'll have one person apply and then they just say, no, I don't want it. And, you know, they go on. It is extremely difficult right now to recruit staff into state employment, especially in Austin, Texas, where we are competing with, I mean, you all know who's here. That to me, I think is going to be our second biggest challenge. The freeze I would put is the most difficult hurdle that we've had to get over. And I would say the economy is, as weird as it sounds, this red hot economy is hurting us. The job market is hurting us on our ability to retain and attract staff as we naturally attrition and lose staff. So
is that something that's in the works for the legislative session to maybe change?
Yeah, we're gonna have to make an ask of the legislature on that, because I'll give you an example. We had 3 temporary investigators. We weren't using those because we couldn't fill them really, and we didn't. I talked to enforcement and they said, no, we don't need them. We can continue to hold where we are and make progress with the full-time staff we have. So I said, then I'm going to take those 3 and I'm going to reassign them as receptionists to deal with the complaints about phone calls. People never been able to get through. I've had one person apply. And when they called that individual to interview her, she was like, nah, I don't even want it anymore. And I think she was a Walmart cashier is where she was coming from. So she found something better, apparently. So, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I can't, I've got a lawyer position that's been open for, I don't know how long now. And it's very, very difficult to fill stuff right now. So we do what we can to hang on to those that we have. But when you're on a fixed budget for 2 years, there's only so much that I can squeeze and shift around the chessboard to make it work. So this is definitely a problem. I want the public to understand that we are not fully staffed right now. We've got quite a few vacancies, and I cannot fill them. I'm trying, but I cannot. We just post stuff over and over again, and nobody even applies. So that's a problem. But we're working on it. Going to try to plan for it in the next legislative session.
And I guess the trickle down from that problem is maybe a slowdown or backlogs that then accumulate because of this hiring issue. So.
Correct. Now it hasn't hit to that degree yet. We're able to shift stuff around, but at some point when you lose enough staff, you can't shift around, and you don't have enough fingers to plug all the holes. Right now I've been able to use the fingers I've got to plug the holes, but there's going to come a time when I don't have enough. Okay. And so I'm trying to manage expectations, get everybody ready for when that happens. Because what you run into is if you start to cannibalize, you say, okay, fine, I'll up a salary for one position, I'll cannibalize 2 other positions. Well, I need those 2 staff, but now I can't even advertise for them because I don't have the money to pay them. So, it puts us in a heck of a spot, a really tight spot. So.
And the next legislative session is not until January 23. Is that right?
Correct. We will submit our LAR probably June, July, I think is whenever we typically submit the LAR. We're already starting to work on it. I'm already in the middle of strategic planning. We're already talking about what we're going to put in that LAR. So we're already working on that, but you don't formally submit it until I think June or July.
And that's when you would include that maybe increased salaries or added FTEs and all that.
Correct.
Okay.
One of the things I want to do is I want to make those temporary receptionist positions permanent. But I'm gonna have to increase salaries in order to do a lot of this stuff. So it doesn't do any good to have the position if nobody wants to work in it. So
exactly. So, all right. Anything? I have nothing else on agenda 18. So we'll move to agenda item 19, report from the board's delegates to the Texas Behavioral Health Executive Council regarding the activities of the Executive Council, including A, rulemaking actions at the October 26th meeting, B, other rulemaking, and C, update on budget and agency-related travel. So as far as A and B, I'm a representative. Ben's been the other representative. I don't really have a lot to report. Been on the standardization rulemaking as well, and that's moving forward. You see some of the results of that in today's meeting as far as some of the proposals made. That continues on a sort of a monthly basis when we take up one new rung on the ladder at a time. So that'll keep moving forward to try to make things seem a little smoother as far as processes across all the agencies included in BHEC. I don't know really anything about agenda item number C. Daryl, Sarah, somebody, the budget related issue, anything on that?
And I may have
Or A or
conflated
B?
this. So for A and B, the board members and the public have meeting materials that's just for your information of what's going on, because it's in the middle of the rule package for the council to take up on February 1st. For C, I may have conflated a couple of things I had in my notes. The last time the social work board met was before the council received a report from its travel subcommittee. But I believe that Director Spinks has provided the board members with a travel policy since that time. So have I confused that, Daryl, or is there more information to provide the board at this time?
No, I don't have anything. I think probably what that was, I took that to mean was an update about the council's travel policy. They're trying to develop a policy to determine so that I don't want to have to be the one passing judgment whenever a board member asks me, can I go do this event or that event? It puts me in a very awkward spot to have to be the call. So I wanted a policy in place that would make those decisions for us. And that's what they're working on. They're trying to decide other than traveling to and from board meeting, what are our rules going to be for paying and reimbursing board members for travel associated with attending conferences, if you will, speaking at schools, that kind of thing. So that's what they're working on right now.
Thank you.
All right, so that concludes agenda item number 19. So that moves us on down to 20, report from the board administrator concerning basic operations.
So I'm going to share some things with you. As you may know, on the council's webpage is a timelines and applying for license and timelines. So in light of Director Spink's report on the vacancies, you can see on this chart where staff is on the initial contact after an application has been received. And you can see the different types of applications that staff is tracking. This is different from after you have received a deficiency notice. That does not appear on this chart. So if you've received a deficiency notice on your application, this is not the place to look at and to think that, well, they've moved on and my application is still out there. Just wanted to let you know about that.
Sarah, what's a LSSP? Is that a school psychologist?
Yes.
Okay.
And then if you'd like to know about what's going on, just to reiterate, all of these things in the header are links. And if you want to link to the social work board and want to know what's going on with rulemaking, all of those rulemaking notices are posted there under board news. Please know, and thanks again to Brenda Skiff and any staff that assisted her under statutes and rules. The council provides a consolidated rule book for social work, and you can see here that it was recently updated. So after rules are adopted, the consolidated rule books are periodically updated to include that newly adopted rule. So if you've downloaded one of these consolidated rule books, check back occasionally and make sure that if you're relying on it, that you're going to the most recent version on that. I can't see what I wanted to remind everyone about fingerprint requirements for renewal. And the social work board has a web page that provides the basic outline for the process, as well as frequently asked questions. You may renew online up to 60 days before your expiration date. It's a good idea to go ahead and get that done, because in that online renewal interface is where you get the agency code that you need then to take to Identicode, the vendor that the state contracts with, for getting your fingerprints done. After you've completed the fingerprint process, staff receives a report from the FBI and the Department of Public Safety. Staff cannot renew the license until they've reviewed and approved those reports. So please get that online part done early and get your fingerprints done timely so that staff can finish the renewal process before your license expires. A delinquent license cannot practice. Only an active license can practice. So just wanted to make you aware of this information on the fingerprint information webpage, and I hope that it's helpful to you and you don't have any delays as you renew your license in the coming months.
Sarah, is there a link on this page that helps people who may not be in a major metropolitan area find a provider?
One of the frequently asked questions is about, I'm not in Texas, where do I go? Do I have to be in Texas? And there's a link here that helps you find the vendor. As I understand it, not every single location of Identicode does the particular fingerprint that we're asking for. So it may not be right around the corner, but this is the vendor that the state has chosen, so we don't have a lot of flexibility in that. So the saving grace is that the renewal process is done once. If you've done it for If you've done it for when you applied for your license, you don't need to do it again. If you've done it for a renewal process, you don't need to keep doing it for every renewal process. So it may be quite inconvenient, especially during COVID, to get it done this one time. And staff is very appreciative of the inconvenience and the efforts that some people are having to go through to get this fingerprint process done. But it is a statutory requirement and we cannot waive it.
Sarah,
Oh, go ahead, Audrey.
do you know if you use that for another license, if you can use it for the social work also? Do you know?
If you use it for a license that's issued by the council, then so if you have an LMFT and a social work license and you've already done it for your marriage and family therapy license, then the council can access that. But if, for example, you have an LCDC, which a licensed chemical dependency counselor, and if they were requiring that and you did it for them, it's a different state agency and we cannot access that. Okay. And all of that is to protect that confidential information of that person, so that only the agency that they're applying for or applying to for that license, only that agency can look at it. If you're military and you've given your fingerprints for some kind of process for the military, we cannot access that. It has to be done specifically for our agency.
Okay. Even if it goes through Identico for the other license.
Correct.
Still the same thing.
Okay.
Okay.
For that agency. Thank you for the question.
And there's information there on that page too about what you need to take with you when you go to renew and update or whatever the process is. It gives you that information, so you have that in hand.
Yeah. I'm going to share a little bit more. Go back to the council's main page and then down to how-to user guides. There's a new feature, or we're working on a new feature for online social worker supervision user guide. I believe this is for the supervisor to manage his or her supervisees. So for example, the LCSW supervisor can enter data regarding the LMSW candidate who's under their supervision plan. I don't see a link to the how-to guide, and if Mr. Spear is on, or if Mr. Spinks knows of an update on this function, is it still in the works? And this is a placeholder?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's still in the works. I know we're going to do it. I just don't know where it's at in the process. I'm hoping Tim can tell us.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check with Clint. I think we already set this up. It may be just a glitch in WordPress, which is the software that we use to keep this website up. So we'll check on that. But if it isn't ready now, it's going to be ready real quick.
And will we do an email update when it's ready?
Correct.
Okay. So if you have not already subscribed to our email updates, I encourage you to do so. Fill out this web-based form and follow the prompts to confirm the subscription. This keeps you informed as what the council changes, rule changes, any changes in procedure, and other significant happenings. It might be very helpful for you to have that. There's scheduled to be another Insights over the lunch hour on February 28th, I believe. And again, so if you are not already subscribed to an email update, please do so, and you'll get an announcement or a reminder about that Insights over the lunch hour. That's an opportunity for the board administrators and the executive director to present to you information about the council and for you to ask questions. Not questions about your particular application or about your particular complaint, because that's a public forum and not where we want to discuss those things, but anything general about rules or procedures or concerns, that kind of thing. So email updates, I encourage you to subscribe to that and stay informed. That concludes my report. Oh, there's one more there was an email update sent out about the biennial customer survey that ended November 30th. Was there any update, Daryl, that you wanted to give the board at this time? Or is that survey being compiled?
I've got it compiled. I've got a draft report ready to go. I just need to, it needs to go to the council first.
The
for them
council
to-
first.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the only other thing is we've got the strategic planning survey out right now. That went out. So if, like I say, there's a link to it on the council's agency news webpage. You go there, and if you want to take the strategic planning survey, that's different from the customer service survey. Strategic planning is different. So if anybody wants to take that, it's still open, and it will be open through February 15th, I believe.
Okay, thank you. That concludes my report, unless there are any questions from the board members.
No, I wanted to point out something too, Sarah, that's there. There's a link on that page about updating your contact information.
Okay.
That is an official update to the board. If your email address changes, your employment changes, is that what that's for? On the right, so
So
change
this
your
one?
contact info, yes. So when you go
Correct.
through and you do that is an official change
My
that the board
understanding, that goes
recognizes.
directly into the database.
Okay,
Yeah, and folks, you're required by law to do that within, I think it's 30 days of
30
any
days.
change in that information. And so if you move, you've got to notify us of that, because if we send your renewal reminder to the wrong address, and that's what contains the instructions for how to download the fingerprinting information, I don't show a lot of sympathy for people that didn't get that when they haven't changed their address in the system. So make sure that's always up to date.
and now I'm going off memory. I know we used to have to change employment status. Is that still in the rules, or is it only our physical contact information, personal contact information?
I don't think we require employment status changes.
Okay.
I think at one time it was practice locations, but I
Yeah,
believe
it
that has
was.
been repealed.
Okay, I thought it had. So now it's just mainly how do we know where you are? So
And here's the strategic planning survey that Daryl was speaking of. So you could click here to complete that survey. And that's on the agency news. If you go to the council's homepage and then click on agency news here in the quick links and scroll down, you'll get information about that there. Okay, that concludes my report.
all right, thank you, Sarah, and appreciate all that you and everyone does for that. So item number 21, discussion and possible action regarding future priorities and activities of the board. So related to that, I guess we'll have, we've discussed for agenda items for the April meeting, the information related to from agenda item number 3, related to appeals, so changing that information, so that'll be there. Do any other board members have any suggestions for or requests for items to be added to the agenda item for our meeting, which will be April 22nd, 2022?
Correct. Just to clarify for the board members, I did send out an inquiry whether you were available on Wednesday, April 20th. But most are, the preferred date is Friday, April 22nd. So we will continue with that April 22nd, the Friday date. And I'll reiterate that in an email to you after this meeting.
All right, hearing no other information related to agenda item 21, we'll move to agenda item 22, which is public comments.
So as we move into public comment, we have no persons attending physically here at our location. So I will ask those that are attending by computer to raise their hand. We'll go through those one by one. Once all the individuals who are attending by computer have raised their hand and had the opportunity to provide their public comment, I will call on those who are attending by telephone. I will unmute you and ask you to speak. Please identify yourself And whether you are speaking on behalf of only yourself or on behalf of an organization, all public comments will be limited to 3 minutes unless otherwise directed by the presiding officer. You always have the opportunity to provide public comment during the in written format before the meeting, as long as it's received before 5 p.m. the last business day prior to the meeting. It is submitted to the board members for their consideration. No written comments received are read aloud during the meeting. I please ask you to refrain from discussing a particular application or a particular complaint case. Some items in might be confidential information. We do not want to publicize those and broadcast those in a public meeting. So we'll begin with public comment then. NASW Texas, Mr. Francis, you have public comment?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I, again, really appreciate all the information today. Lots of good stuff and lots of stuff to take back to our members. A couple of points. One, in regards to item number 16 that Mr. Spinks referred to on how to grow LCSWSs in Texas. I definitely don't want to say that we do anything about the delegating piece without talking to the Clinical Association, without talking to some other groups, really bringing in some stakeholders on that. But one thing I could say is this board does have language, or there are languages in the rule around how essentially virtual or, using the process over Zoom or whatnot is used in the supervision process, and it says it really focuses on in-person. That could be something I think you all could look at on the rules on potentially expanding so that LMSWs who are in areas that don't have many LCSWSs could connect with those in other areas. So I definitely think that the board could look at the rules there before even moving anything on delegation. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was at the ASWB meeting the other day, we actually talked about another issue that I was sort of saving for the public comment period, and Chair Brumley brought it up there around the ESL. We talked about a Spanish language exam and what that would mean. Texas's population of Hispanic persons is just growing exponentially. It's the largest in the country over the last 10 years. Many social workers provide services in Spanish. And I think both training and testing in the language that is to be used primarily with clients really makes a lot of sense. I would love for this board to advocate with ASWB for a Spanish language test. I think Texas could be the first in the nation to do this, and that many other states, California, all sorts of others would follow. I would love it at the next board meeting. Maybe that could be a board item on what it would look like to speak to ASWB about a Spanish language exam and how we could potentially advocate. Are there costs involved? What would it look like involving, different areas of the valley, different areas west, all over Texas in general? But I definitely think that's a really big area, and so would just love to put that out there as an agenda item. And thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. Ms. Martin, Sandra Martin.
Yes, I had a public comment earlier, but I did want to add, I am governmental liaison for Christian Counselors of Texas. We have some people from BHEC that will be at our conference February 10 through 12th. We'd love to invite you. I'll probably send out a notice of some kind. But I also wanted to say, I met last night with a group of people. We are bringing our educators together. So if there are social workers listening who are working in a college or university or anything like that, we will be beginning to bring those together formally during this conference. So please contact cctx.org, I think is the very simple way to do that. And let us know that you are teaching somewhere related to social work, because we want to find out who we need to be in touch with, who we need to work with, who we need to support and encourage. And I thank you guys that are on my screen in front of me for your hard work. You are appreciated by Christian Counselors of Texas. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Ms. Martin, before you go,
Yes.
Is your meeting February 10th, 12th, is that virtual or is that a live event?
Oh, we're bold and brave. We're live.
And where will that be?
It's at the Marriott, the Courtyard Marriott in Pflugerville. And we do take appropriate safety measures. You can do virtual if you want to, and many do because they have conditions and so on and so forth. But we're primarily live with virtual opportunities.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I see no other raised hand for public comment, so if you're attending by by computer and would like to give public comment, use the raise hand feature. Luann Baxton, you have public comment?
I have a question. I'm not sure if this is the right format for this. You can let me know if I'm out of line. I just have recently retired from my position as a social worker. And I understand that there now is a way that you can retire your license. Is that correct?
Yes, there's a retirement status for the license. Is your email up to date in our contact information?
Yes.
Okay, then I will look up your email address after this meeting and send you information about how to request retirement status and things to consider.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I see no other hands raised for public comment. And I find no attendees that have attended by phone. We had a caller earlier, but I don't see them now. So I believe that's the end of public comment.
Thank you, Sarah. Just for my information, Daryl or Patrick, on Will Francis's NASW Texas statement about using a Spanish language version. I know Texas has a lot of forms that are in Spanish language, but we don't have any rules or laws like some other states that prohibit doing things like that, do we?
Correct. I'm not aware of anything.
Okay, so yeah, I know lots of information on certain websites are available in both languages. So
yeah.
So I guess Sarah, I'd like to ask that we go ahead and add that as a discussion point for our April agenda as well, as far as exploring the opportunities or possibilities for a Spanish language version of the ASWB exam. Okay. Well, that moves us to item 23, announcements and comments not requiring board action related to conferences or other upcoming events. So we heard from Ms. Martin related to the Christian Counselors of Texas for their February event. I don't know of anything that's coming up otherwise related to social work. Any board members have any events that you're aware of that we should discuss or the public should know about? All right.
I can run through a list of February 1st is the next council meeting. February 28th is the Insights Over the Lunch Hour. That's the board administrators and Director Spinks.
And that's an open Zoom meeting, correct?
That's an open Zoom meeting.
Yes.
April 22nd is the next social work board meeting. April 28th is the ASWB Administrators Forum, which I go to, but and possibly Director Spinks. And April 29th and 30th is the ASWB Education meeting. And then May 18th is the next council meeting. So that kind of gets us through the next quarter.
Okay.
I think January 29th, ASWB is having a board meeting in Fort Worth too.
Thank you.
Okay.
So if him.
And Daryl, is that just for board members or is that an open, do you know?
I think some of that is an open meeting. I think they have an open meeting. I think they operate kind of like what we do. They go into closed session for a few things, but
they need things. Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Will, Francis, if you're still out there, I know NASW is a long time away, probably October-ish, but is he out there?
Mr. Francis, are you there?
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. Will, is
Yeah.
there a plan for NASW conference?
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed, we'll be in Galveston in October in person. We'll just have to see how things go. But yes, I appreciate you mentioning that. But it'll be in October, and we had Mr. Spink speak at our last one, and we would love to have either him or any representative from the board available to present.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that. All right. Well, that takes us to item number 24, which is to adjourn this meeting. So, any board members have any other information they need to discuss or talk about? Hearing none, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
So,
I'll second.
and Martha seconded. So all those in favor of adjourning the meeting on January 7th of the Texas State Board of Social Work Examiners at 11:01 signify by raising your hand saying aye. All right, so be it. Thank y'all all and look forward to seeing you on April 22nd.
Thank you.